Okay, let's get into it. Today, we are doing a proper deep dive, really strapping in to unpack North Vietnam. It's incredibly diverse, sometimes overwhelming, but always fascinating.
Mm,
And our focus here, looking at the sources, is squarely on the 2026 travel picture. So we're not just flipping through old guidebooks, we're trying to assess, what it's really like now. The amazing parts, sure, but also the real world challenges, the
that,
logistics.
that's exactly right. The mission today really is to pull out the key things you need to know if you're thinking about this trip. We need to get past the shiny brochure descriptions.
Yeah.
We're talking the whole range. Hanoi's crazy energy, the iconic natural beauty of Halong Bay,
Mhm.
Sapa's cultural site up in the hills,
Mhm.
then the really rugged stuff like Cao Bang and Giang, and also Ninh Binh, which is, well, a bit calmer.
Right. So the idea is you walk away understanding what makes each place special, but also how things have shifted, how the whole travel scene impacts the experience now.
Exactly. We want to help you see the difference between those famous spots that might be, frankly, struggling with too many visitors and the places that are still genuinely off the radar. The ones that take more effort, maybe, but offer something. Well, untouched.
So what does all this mean for someone looking for that mix of real experience and adventure in, say, the next couple of years? Let's dive in. And we have to start where pretty much every journey up there begins: Hanoi, the capital. You can't really avoid it, can you? It's basically the mandatory first stop, the gateway culturally, logistically for almost any trip to the north. You land there, you figure things out there.
Absolutely. It's the launch pad.
Yep.
And, it sets a really complex tone right from the start. Hanoi is this intense collision point. You've got centuries in tradition literally rubbing shoulders with really aggressive, fast-paced modern development.
That tension is everywhere.
It is. It defines the city.
Yeah.
And what's so striking is how, well, sometimes it feels seamless, other times it feels quite jarring, how the ancient past just coexists right alongside the super modern.
I always think of it in layers. You can see it, you can hear it. The sources always talk about the specific things that pull you in, right?
Well,
Like the old quarter, those incredibly narrow, chaotic streets, but they have so much charm.
each named after the trade that used to be there.
Exactly. And then just blocks away, you find these incredibly peaceful lakes, like Hoang Kim, almost meditative, right in the middle of everything.
Yep.
And then obviously the street food. It's legendary for a reason, constant buzz.
It really is. But then, right next door to an ancient temple, you'll see a new skyscraper going up or major road construction. The sheer number of scooters, some reports say millions, just navigating the city center every day. That mix is the energy. It's this relentless hum, almost an assault on the senses, but in a compelling way. You have to engage with it immediately.
That energy is definitely a big part of the appeal. But looking towards 2026, the research raises this really important point about that blend. It's not slow, gradual change anymore. It's rapid.
Very rapid.
You have high-rises appearing right next to pagodas that have stood for centuries.
That tension is absolutely key. It's the charm of those old lanes versus, well, the reality of serious overcrowding in places and development that sometimes feels, well, maybe not always thoughtfully integrated.
So travelers are starting to ask, right? Is it getting too much? Does the crowd dilute that historic feel you came for?
That's the question. We are seeing big infrastructure projects, though, like the new metro lines mentioned in some analyses. That's crucial for managing the density long term.
Oh, that's interesting, the metro. So they are actively trying to tackle the traffic problem, moving beyond just scooters and cars.
They have to. But development, as always, cuts both ways. Better infrastructure is needed, but it also risks watering down that unique atmosphere or making it feel more commercial. So Hanoi is still this incredibly vibrant, essential starting point, full of contrast. But if you're going now, you need to manage your expectations about the sheer number of people, the noise, the pace, especially in peak season or rush hour.
So embrace the history, but be ready for the intensity that comes with it. That's the first challenge.
It really is. It's the entry point to modern Vietnam.
Okay, so you navigate Hanoi's intensity.
Mhm.
Where do most people head next? It's usually straight for those postcard images, right? The
Yeah.
landscapes that North Vietnam is famous for globally.
Exactly. You move from the urban hub to the natural and cultural icons.
And these are the two places everyone instantly recognizes: the limestone karsts in the bay and the rice terraces in the mountains. But, like you said, being that famous brings enormous pressure, which means as a traveler, you suddenly have to make some pretty conscious choices ethically, logistically.
This is really where your mindset has to shift. You're not just sightseeing anymore. You're actually thinking about your impact, your role in whether these places survive intact.
Okay, let's start with Halong Bay. It's just spectacular geology. Describe that classic image for us, those thousands of limestone towers jutting straight out of the green water. It's the ultimate bucket list view for so many people.
It genuinely looks like something from another world. The scale of it, the shapes, it's a result of millions of years of geological processes. It absolutely deserves its UNESCO World Heritage status, no question. Yeah. That global fame is creating a massive conflict right now, especially looking ahead to 2026. The research points to really significant pressure from tourism. And it's not just international visitors anymore. Domestic tourism is booming too.
So what does that pressure actually feel like when you're out there on a boat? What do the sources say about overcrowded cruises?
Well, primarily it's about density. Think long waits to board boats, lots of cruise ships clustered around the popular caves or viewpoints. You might struggle to find that sense of quiet or solitude you were hoping for. And critically, there's the environmental fallout. This is a really fragile marine ecosystem, and it's under strain. We're talking issues with plastic waste, wastewater discharge from the sheer volume of boats, particularly the larger, cheaper ones.
That sounds pretty grim. The go-to solution always mentioned is eco-tour operators. Sounds good in theory. But how realistic is that for the average traveler? Are these sustainable options becoming like a luxury good, only for people with deep pockets?
That's a really important and difficult question. The research does suggest that generally, yes, the genuine eco-friendly tours cost more, often quite a bit more than the standard mass market cruises.
Why is that?
Well, reports detail operators using, say, traditional junk boats, which have less impact, or focusing heavily on kayaking, avoiding engine use. They invest in proper waste treatment on board. These things cost money, and that cost gets passed on.
Okay.
So yeah, there's definitely a trade-off emerging. If you want truly sustainable value in a place this popular, it often requires a bigger financial commitment. That seems to be the reality of responsible travel in these high-demand zones.
So if the main bay is facing these issues, and maybe the truly eco options are pricey, are there other ways to get that same stunning scenery without contributing quite so much to the problem or the crowds?
Yes, absolutely. And this is probably the most actionable advice for anyone listening. The insider tips consistently point towards looking at the neighboring bays, specifically Lan Ha Bay and Bai Tu Long Bay.
Okay, Lan Ha and Bai Tu Long.
Exactly. Geographically, they're part of the same massive karst system. You get the same breathtaking limestone islands, the same emerald water. But crucially, they see significantly fewer cruise boats. Tourism there tends to be managed on a smaller scale.
So the visual wow factor is identical, but it's less packed, and maybe the operators are smaller, more local.
That's generally the case. Lan Ha Bay, which is technically part of the Cat Bay archipelago, and Bai Tu Long Bay, further to the east, focusing your search on cruises specifically operating in these bays is key. It helps you avoid the worst of the congestion around the main Halong sites.
So it requires a bit more homework before booking.
It does. You can't just search Halong Bay Cruise. You need to look for operators explicitly mentioning Lan Ha or Bai Tu Long and check their sustainability credentials if possible. But it's probably the best way right now to find some genuine peace out there and minimize your footprint.
All right, let's shift gears from the water to the mountains. Sapa. This is the classic destination for trekkers, photographers, people drawn by those incredible terraced rice fields carved into the hillsides. An ancient way of farming.
Absolutely stunning.
And also the promise of interacting with ethnic minority cultures, right? Mainly the Hmong and the Dao people living in the surrounding villages. That idea of authentic cultural immersion is a huge part of the appeal.
It is. That's the dream of the Highlands. But much like Halong Bay, Sapa has gone through a massive, and some would say quite damaging, transformation because it got so popular.
Oh, so.
Well, the tourism boom there, which really took off once road access got much better, has fundamentally changed the local experience. That authentic vibe that first attracted visitors, it's now in direct competition with widespread commercialization.
Okay, let's dig into that development dilemma. We're seeing huge changes, cable cars going up the mountains, big new luxury hotels perched on hills overlooking the town, markets expanding specifically for tourists. How does the analysis weigh this up? Does this new infrastructure enhance the visit, or does it detract from that authentic experience people are looking for?
It's a mixed bag, according to the sources, but honestly, the balance tips heavily towards concern. Proponents will argue that better roads and hotels make the area accessible to more people, which has some benefits.
Sure.
But the dominant view seems to be that the large scale, especially the luxury developments built right on those iconic slopes, feel really intrusive. They change the whole look and feel of the place and the local economy, too.
How do they measure that economic impact? Is it just commercialization, or is there something more specific going on?
That's where you need to look closely. Economic analyses we reviewed point to a significant problem called economic leakage. Basically, when big hotel chains, maybe foreign-owned or large Vietnamese corporations, build these resorts, a lot of the money tourists spend doesn't actually stay in the local Sapa community.
Ah, okay. It goes back to headquarters somewhere else.
Exactly. So the focus shifts. Instead of genuine cultural exchange where your spending directly supports local families running homestays or guiding treks, it becomes more transactional. The local ethnic communities risk becoming, well, just part of the scenery for mass tourism or vendors in crowded markets.
That's a really stark difference. So how does a traveler navigate that? How can you visit Sapa without feeling like you're just part of that leakage problem or contributing to the cultural side, becoming just a show?
The key, according to everything we've looked at, is actively seeking out community-based tourism, or CBT. You have to look for specific established trekking routes and homestays, often highlighted in responsible travel forums or guides that are known to be genuinely run by and benefit the local villages.
Right, CBT, community-based tourism.
These programs are designed specifically to ensure the money you spend on your guide, your accommodation, your food goes directly back into that village economy.
Can you give some examples of what that looks like on the ground, beyond just booking a homestay that says it's community-run?
Yeah, it means thinking ethically before you even get there. For example, the sources really stress buying handicrafts directly from the person who made them, maybe in their village, rather than from a big stall in Sapa Town. Making sure your trekking guide is actually from the community you're visiting.
Okay.
And also being mindful of things like not encouraging children to sell trinkets, as it can pull them out of school. You probably can't avoid seeing the big developments near Sapa Town itself, but you can choose very deliberately where you trek, where you stay, and how you spend your money in the surrounding valleys to support preservation, not just consumption.
That's really practical advice for Sapa. Okay, so we've talked about the big names Hanoi, Halong, Sapa, where you need that careful planning because of crowds or development pressure. Let's shift now. Let's look at places that offer maybe a bit of respite from that intensity, the hidden gems, if you like, without that immediate ethical conflict.
Right. This part is really for the traveler who's willing to trade a bit of convenience, maybe, for something more raw, more peaceful, and often more solitary in terms of the natural beauty.
First up, Cao Bang Province. This definitely qualifies as off the beaten path. Can you paint a picture of this region? What makes it stand out in the North Vietnam itinerary?
It's incredibly raw, mountainous, and feels very peaceful compared to the main tourist hubs. Geographically, it's tucked way up in the far northeast, right against the Chinese border. That remoteness means far fewer travelers make it here.
So it's more like the Vietnam you might see in nature documentaries. Less polished.
Exactly. Dramatic landscapes, relatively untouched by large-scale tourism development. But getting there requires a certain commitment. It's not easy access.
And the absolute highlight here, the must-see, is Ban Giok Waterfall, which is massive and literally sits on the border with China. That location alone sounds incredible.
It's truly spectacular. Ban Giok isn't just a single drop. It's this huge, wide, multi-tiered cascade that stretches for hundreds of meters. It ranks among the largest waterfalls in Asia.
Wow.
And yet you're standing right there looking across the water, which is shared by both countries, at this immense natural power. It's quite something. But we have to be honest about the off-the-beaten-path reality. The reward is definitely that unique experience, fewer people, real raw beauty.
Okay, but the trade-off? Fewer crowds usually means less infrastructure, less convenience. What are the specific logistical hurdles travelers need to brace for in Cao Bang?
Yeah, the main challenge is logistics. The sources are clear. Because the infrastructure is less developed, travel within the province is slow. Roads are paved, but often they're narrow, winding mountain roads. Yeah. Journeys can take much longer than they look on a map.
Weather delays, too, I imagine.
Definitely. Landslides, fog, things like that can impact travel. And accommodation is different. You're mostly looking at simple, local guest houses, Nang Yi, or maybe some basic government-run tourist facilities, not modern hotels. And English won't be as widely spoken as in Hanoi or Sapa.
So Cao Bang isn't somewhere you can just slot into a packed 2-week itinerary easily. It demands time, patience, flexibility, kind of the opposite of buzzing Hanoi.
Absolutely. You have to be prepared for the journey itself to be a major part of the adventure. long bus rides, maybe renting a motorbike for several days if you have the skills. It takes effort to connect the points of interest.
But the payoff is?
The payoff is experiencing a part of Vietnam that feels genuinely untamed by mass tourism. It's a direct trade. Time and comfort exchanged for unparalleled natural beauty and a sense of discovery.
Okay, now let's talk about Ninh Binh. It often gets called Halong Bay on land, which immediately gives you a visual similar dramatic limestone karsts. But it seems to have a totally different vibe and accessibility level, right?
Yeah, the nickname is helpful to picture, but let's unpack the geology a bit. You do have those same incredible limestone outcrops rising almost vertically. But here, instead of the sea, they rise out of rivers and these vast, flat, incredibly green rice paddies.
Ah, okay, so it's a landlocked version of that landscape.
Exactly. You get the dramatic cliffs, caves you can row boats through like at Tamcock and Trang An, but it's all set within this very fertile riverine landscape, much greener in a way.
So what's the main draw here? Why would someone choose Ninh Binh over the actual Halong Bay, apart from maybe avoiding the cruise ship crowds or costs?
Well, its biggest advantage is that it's positioned as a much quieter and vastly more accessible alternative. You still get those jaw-dropping geological views. Taking a sampan boat rowed by locals, often using their feet, through water caves under the mountains is amazing. Wow. But the scale of tourism is just much more manageable. And crucially, it's only about 2 or 3 hours south of Hanoi by road or train. That ease of access is a huge factor. It offers a real counterpoint to the planning needed for the coastal bays.
And the feedback from travelers, according to our sources, often frames Ninh Binh as a real find, a hidden gem almost. People seem to find a great mix there. Nature, culture, relaxation.
Yes, and that balance is really its strength. You get spectacular scenery, plus interesting cultural sites like the ancient capital Ho'olu, or temples built right into the cliffs, but without that feeling of being overwhelmed by tourism infrastructure. Which brings us to an interesting point. Is Ninh Binh best as just a day trip from Hanoi, given how close it is?
Yeah.
Or does it deserve more time?
It sounds perfect for a day trip, being so close. But what does the research suggest about staying longer?
Well, technically, yes, you can do it as a very long day trip. But the consensus seems to be that just doing a day trip means you only scratch the surface. You might rush through one boat trip, see one temple, and head back. You miss the real value, which is the tranquility. Staying for 2 or 3 nights lets you actually absorb that peaceful atmosphere. You can cycle leisurely through the villages between the karsts, maybe visit both Kam Kok and Trang. And they offer slightly different boat experiences. See Halu properly.
So the recommendation is lean into the calm. Use the easy access not to rush, but to actually slow down and stay a bit.
Exactly. Treat it as a proper break, a contrast to Hanoi's chaos or Halong's crowds. Plus, staying longer means you're spending on accommodation, and food is more likely to benefit the local, often family-run businesses there. It fits that responsible tourism model quite nicely, without the same intense pressures as Sapa.
All right, we've covered the accessible alternatives. Now let's move to the real edge, the most rugged, demanding adventure the North offers. We saved this for last for a reason.
Yeah, this is definitely the deep end.
If you're looking for the ultimate test of nerve, commitment, maybe even endurance, this seems to be it.
Absolutely. This is where planning and being brutally honest with yourself about your abilities and risk tolerance becomes non-negotiable. The risks are significant. The environment can be harsh.
Okay, let's define it. The Giang Loop. It's known as this incredibly challenging multi-day motorcycle journey way up in the far north near the China border again.
Yeah.
We're talking hundreds of kilometers, maybe 300, 400 kilometers of high mountain roads. And you don't hop on a tour bus for this. It's either you ride a motorbike yourself or you hire a local expert driver, these guys famously called Easy Riders.
That's the fundamental reality. The appeal is huge, no doubt. You're riding through just unbelievable landscapes, towering canyons like the Mapialang Pass. It's absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah.
And you pass through traditional ethnic villages that feel very remote, very different from the more touristed areas.
Yeah.
The sheer scale of the mountains up there, the jagged peaks, it's just staggering.
But it's demanding. It takes several days. Let's break down the specific challenges. What do travelers absolutely need to assess, especially around safety and the roads themselves?
Safety is number 1. Road conditions are number 2. People have to understand, even though the roads have improved a lot, these are still serious mountain routes. They're often narrow, incredibly twisty, frequently lack guardrails on sheer drops.
Okay.
And they're very exposed to weather. Sudden thick fog, heavy rain, even landslides are real possibilities. So you either need serious motorcycle experience, really comfortable handling steep climbs, descents, maybe gravel patches, unpredictable traffic like trucks or buffalo.
Right. Not for beginners.
Definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
Or you take the option that's strongly recommended for most people,
Mm-hmm.
hire an experienced local easy rider.
Let's talk about that easy rider concept. It's interesting you get the thrill, the views, but someone else handles the difficult riding. How common is this, and what does it tell us about how tough the loop actually is?
It's extremely common now and highly recommended by pretty much all reliable sources, especially if you don't ride powerful bikes regularly back home. The very fact that the Easy Rider service is so popular basically confirms the inherent difficulty and potential danger of navigating the loop solo.
So it kind of outsources the risks.
In a way, yes. It commercializes the safety aspect, and importantly, it provides good income for skilled local drivers who know these roads like the back of their hand. It lets the traveler just sit on the back, soak in the absolutely epic scenery, and experience the culture without worrying about the next hairpin bend.
The reward must be pretty immense, though, for people to take on this challenge, even with an easy rider. What makes it so special?
It really seems to be the combination of the raw, dramatic landscape and the human connection. Travelers consistently report that despite the physical toll, the moments of genuine warmth and hospitality they encounter in the remote ethnic minority villages, the Lolo, the Halong, the Tay communities up there, are what define the trip. You're in a place that feels truly off the grid, high up in the mountains, and that remoteness seems to foster these really unique, often unexpected interactions. Many sources describe it as the most humbling, the most rewarding part of their entire Vietnam journey.
So, bottom line, who is this for? It sounds like it really filters the audience. Not everyone should attempt the Ha Giang loop.
Absolutely not. This is tailor-made for the adventurous, reasonably physically fit traveler who puts epic scenery and deep cultural immersion way above comfort or predictable schedules.
Yeah.
If you need reliable Wi-Fi, paved sidewalks, and international menus, this isn't your trip. It demands resilience. You might face bad weather, basic accommodation, long hours on the road. It requires flexibility. But if you have that adventurous spirit, it seems to be the absolute pinnacle of North Vietnam exploration, the ultimate challenge. #outreg_outro.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground metaphorically and literally. From Hanoi's packed streets all the way up to the dizzying heights of Ha Giang. Let's try and pull all this together. What's the main takeaway for someone planning a trip to North Vietnam in 2026?
Yeah, synthesizing this, it's not a simple yes or no. The overwhelming conclusion from the research is, yes, North Vietnam as a whole circuit is absolutely worth experiencing in 2026. But, and it's a huge but.
Always a but.
Always. It's only truly rewarding if you go in with your eyes wide open. Understanding that every destination we talked about comes with incredible rewards, yes, but also specific modern challenges, whether that's dealing with crowds, thinking ethically about your impact, or tackling genuine logistical difficulties.
So it's about more than just booking a flight and a hotel. What's the essential mindset a traveler needs to cultivate, based on everything we've discussed, to really enjoy this incredibly varied region?
I think it boils down to three key things. First, you absolutely need flexibility, maybe extreme flexibility sometimes. Plans might change, buses will be slow, comfort levels are going to swing wildly, especially if you venture out to places like Cao Bang.
Okay, flexibility. What else?
Second, a real genuine curiosity. You need to be willing to look beyond the obvious tourist trail, to engage the place on its own terms, and actively seek out those authentic interactions and experiences that definitely still exist, but might take a bit more effort to find.
And the third thing, this feels crucial, especially for places like Halong and Sapa, and maybe even Ha Giang with its remote communities.
Yeah. The third is proactive responsibility. Respecting the local cultures you encounter, remembering that the ethnic minority groups are sharing their homes, their landscapes, their traditions. Your visit needs to be respectful. Prioritizing that community benefit, looking for those CBT options we discussed over just being a passive consumer. It's a basic responsibility that comes with the privilege of visiting such a unique and fast-changing part of the world.
It really sounds like North Vietnam offers this incredible spectrum for travelers who are adventurous and, crucially, informed. From the relative ease and beauty of Ninh Binh to the raw challenge of the far north. But yeah, getting it right clearly takes more than just showing up. It needs some homework.
It really does demand careful, specific planning. If you just rock up and book the standard package tour to the two most famous places, you might find yourself overwhelmed by the crowds and maybe even a bit disappointed, wondering where the real Vietnam went. But if you plan consciously, if you do that extra bit of research to find the smaller operators in Lan Ha Bay or the specific community treks in the Sapa valleys, or vet your Easy Rider for Giang properly, the potential rewards are just huge.
Okay, so on that note about planning, here's our final thought for you, the listener, to take away and maybe act on. We've established that navigating North Vietnam well requires research and the right mindset. But let's push that further. Don't just stop at deciding which places sound good. Before you actually go, make it a project to actively research and compile specific, actionable advice on sustainable tourism for your chosen spots. Don't just find eco-cruise. Find the names of operators with good reviews. Don't just think community trek. Find the specific routes or villages recommended. Get the safety checklists for motorbike rental or easy riders.
Turn the general advice into a concrete plan.
Exactly. Transform the good intentions into an actual list of verified providers, ethical guidelines, maybe even phrases to use. Make sure your amazing trip doesn't just take from the region, but actually gives back something positive, however small. Don't just be a tourist passing through. Aim to be an informed, responsible traveler.